we got Mubarak back, so that's awesome.
Yes,
Where you
sir.
been, bro? What's the latest?
Around the world, man. Right now, I'm not in the best place right now, as you can tell by my setup, but actually in New York. But we'll be back in a studio-ready place by next week. So
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I just got back from Austin. I did a 24-hour trip in Austin. It was super interesting. So I don't know if you know who Nick Gray is. He's like this guy that has a book around a 2-hour cocktail party, which I actually showed it to my wife. She's always wanting to have people over, and I never want to have people over, mostly because have you ever been to a dinner party and it's like it's all cliquey and like you're in a circle of people that you don't really want to keep talking to, but you also don't want to leave the circle of people and like maybe not get accepted into a new clique of people. And so you like stay in the shitty circle like the whole time. And so Nick Gray hit me up on Twitter and said that there's this girl, Lauren Tickner.
I know that person actually.
So
wow.
So she has a business called Impact School, which crushes it and teaches coaches and consultants how to do social media messaging. So you get a DM on Instagram, like they help you figure out how to set a sales
appointment
call,
setter, and
closing, and all that stuff. And so she's coming in town. Nick Gray was throwing this party for her. He DM'd me. He's like, "Hey, are you in Austin?" And I was like, "I can be, sure." So it was awesome because there were a couple interesting things that happened. There were all these kind of people that are on the internet selling info products like Ryan Moran at capitalism.com, Lauren Tickner, obviously, and a bunch of others. And it was interesting because I think in that space, there's more and more people that have started a course company and are kind of feel like they're like the top of the pyramid there. And they're like trying to figure out what the next step is. And so a lot of them are trying to figure out how to grow something that's kind of outside of their personal brand. Like they want audience that's not their audience. And so it's kind of like what we're going to talk about today. And then this morning I played pickleball with Ben Levy. What are
Ben Tigler
and Ramon Van
Meer.
Ben Levy, like SMB Twit guy, or who is he?
Milk Road guy.
Milk Road guy.
Oh, Milk Road guy. Oh, yeah.
And have you ever played pickleball, Mubarak?
No, I haven't, but I heard you're going pro. No, I don't think brown people play it. I don't know. That's the thing.
Don't make it a race.
Kevin Durant's playing it.
Just kidding. I mean, now that we've started to play golf, you guys have just bounced to another pickleball.
Once we started seeing y'all in the golf course, like, shit, we got to find a new thing. Like, they totally fucked this shit up.
Seriously.
So, yeah, we always try to stay 5 years ahead, you know? So that's going to be the next thing. So,
well, I have you 5 years beat on something because I just sent you guys a link. I did an interview with Lauren Tickner in 2018.
Shut up.
No way.
Yes, sir. Impact Through Influence. I sent you guys the link. I had a podcast that used to be called Invest HQ, which was going to be like a separate one from In Penny Stock. And I talked to her back in 2018. Yeah, she has the Impact Through Influence course and everything. And
you talked to her. What was the convo about?
I think back then she was just starting. She was just doing something where she was a fitness blogger trying to go into like a course. I think it was her first course. I think Impact Through Influence back 5 years ago was her first course. So the fact that you just met her, is just insanity.
So I think she's pretty young. She's like, I don't know, in her early 20s, maybe 23, 24, 25. And so she's doing some things that I can't tell you what she's doing because some of it's supposed to happen in the next week or two. But I've met a fair amount of people online. And sometimes you can tell when like the face of something and then like the business stuff, they're just completely oblivious to what's happening in the background. And she's not that at all. She's like totally keyed into she was like, oh, there's like key man risk. And so I had to eliminate the key man risk on this thing. And like, I'd be open to doing like, she knew her. I was like super impressed with her.
Crazy.
So she's been able to do that successfully, like break it out. Like now she has something called Impact School, right?
Impact School,
or Impact University, or something like that.
Impact School is her thing.
Because what yours says, Impact Through Influence, was the one you interviewed about. I wonder if it's the same thing, different brand.
Probably.
Different name.
Probably. This was 5 years ago, so that's why I was like, "Aren't TikTok?"
I think back then, because back then there were like a bunch of businesses around social just like teaching you like coaching, like a coaching business in general, and then I think she's like figured out the system and Yeah, I think she says online, she says publicly that she made $3 million, like she netted $3 million last year, like her, and she lives in Dubai, like no taxes, whatever. It's a whole thing.
Wow. Who else did you meet?
Who what?
Who else? Anyone else you met around there?
I'm really bad at names.
I think I saw in the picture. It was like the dudes from Jasper or something like that.
Yeah, the Jasper dude. One of the co-founders of Jasper was there.
Is he mega tall or something?
I think it's the founder.
I'm 5'9", so it's relative, I guess, in terms of
I think
mega height.
The other guy, the other co-founder.
One of them is apparently like 6'10" or something like
not
that.
that. No, not that.
Okay.
That would be super visible. Yeah, he's like 5'10", so I'd say mega tall. It's like just towering. No, no, it was not that guy, I don't think. So we are going to talk about.
You didn't finish your pickleball thing. How did the pickleball go?
Pickleball. I mean, it was a great game. You know, what am I supposed to say?
Because I saw a tweet. So there's 2 tweets I saw that came up about this pickleball match. So I was hoping you would stream it, but the stream didn't happen.
Ben reached out, Ben Levy, and he's like, hey, we should meet up Wednesday morning. I was like, cool, that'd be great. He's like, was there anybody else that you want to meet? I'm like, oh, whatever. I trust your judgment. Like, whoever you think I should meet would be great. And so he's like, okay, there's these people, like Ramon is in. Ben like messaged me separately and said that he was in. 2 days before I went out there, I was like, well, we're gonna like go to breakfast. Like, what if we like go play pickleball? I play an unhealthy amount of pickleball. And
professional.
So anyway, we went and played. It was Ben Tigler's first time, and he did great. And Ben Levy, I think, plays a fair amount, but I play a lot. And so anyway,
so this was one of the tweets. This was from Ramon. It says, by the way, when we played doubles, Raleigh played us while holding his phone in one hand, ordering an Uber, and still beat me and Ben 11-5.
Oh my God.
I was worried about missing my flight, and we were up like 6-0, and so I picked up my phone and I just played with one hand for a bit to make sure that I caught my Uber. And
then this was the other one. This was from Ben. I don't know if I can find it. Ben was like something around like, Raleigh, you're the biggest sandbagger in the history of the world, something like that.
Yeah, I think he said like,
which I can speak from experience. So first time I met Raleigh was not first time, but probably the first time really hanging out. There was a little ping pong table downstairs at our office, and you're like, "Hey man, do you play ping pong?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, I play a little bit of ping pong." Like not thinking anyone's ever really like actually played ping pong unless like I'm in Japan or something. But like
I was racist as shit, but that was
a little off the cuff. I've seen Olympics. So we go downstairs and there's a little ping pong table, and he's like, all right, cool, let's just play around a little bit. I'm handling my own. I'm not like doing terrible. He's like, okay, cool. You want to put some money on the this game? And I was like, sure, why not? A couple $100, sure, let's do it. And I think I lost like 21-0, 21-2.
Did he change up completely, or was it the same?
Oh yeah, fully changed on. I think he went like full right-handed. Okay. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm playing left-handed. And then it was like, what was that, Princess Bride, where he's like, oh, I'm actually left-handed. And then you go on, and he's like, all right, cool. This happened with pickleball and ping pong. He gave me a 19-point lead, and so it was 19-0. Or something like that. And
oh my God!
It still beat me. I'm like, what the hell?
Ping pong's dope because most people think that they're better. Like most people think that they're in the top whatever percentile of it, but they just don't. They just don't play that much.
Play with someone real, yeah.
And
I'm good on the average level. Like I beat people that like played because they got their tech company got a ping pong table.
Yeah,
they used to play at lunch. Like I'm at that level.
Those are the best. Yeah. That's the best. That's the best crowd. And so
I can't do a spin, for example, but I can hold my own.
So the lesson with Chandler was, what did you learn? And you'll always remember, it was just a $500 lesson, which is much cheaper than how I had to learn it.
It was in the world, in deals or anything, there's 2 people. There's the shark and the minnow. And if you're not the shark, then you're the minnow.
And if you're not positive, you're the shark, you're the minnow.
And I was definitely the minnow.
So just a lesson that had to be learned.
Lesson.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we got today?
Alrighty. So, let's see.
As I was in Austin talking to these people that have these businesses, it's kind of like the evolution of the online space. If you look like Patrick Bet David, right? when
Yeah.
homie from Fox News, what's homie's name?
Tucker Carlson.
When Tucker Carlson was leaving Fox News, right? Patrick Bet-David offered him $100 million to go and work for Valuetainment. So, and Patrick obviously had an insurance company, but you know, he moved into online education, courses, all that stuff. And then they're all kind of transitioning to trying to become like a media holding company. That seems to be the trend that I'm seeing trickle down even to the people that I was talking to in Austin. And so I kind of went down this random rabbit hole of what are the media companies or the social media channels that have ever sold to private equity? Like, what's the end game in all of this stuff? Obviously, audience is the new oil, and attention. You know, Gary Vee's been talking about attention for forever. And I think all that's true, but I'm always thinking like, okay, well, what's the terminal value? Like, where does this ultimately end? Who ultimately is the downstream buyer of these things?
Yeah.
And an interesting deal that I found was this account, this Instagram page called Daquan, which is this like fictional character that was posting memes back in 2017, 2018. And it was actually started by this 17-year-old that would just be online. And he was just like super witty and had a great pulse on what was happening in culture. And then would post a meme about what was happening. And like, it's just one of those accounts that when you look at it and you just laugh, you're like, oh shit, that's funny. Like, I never thought of it like that. And the crazy
I don't know if you remember 9gag, but I think he was even from back then in those days. 9gag.
What was that? And what was that?
It was like a meme website.
Got it.
Just like pure memes. Yeah.
Only a site? Only a website?
Yep. Only a website. And eventually they made it into an app, but it was just kind of like almost like think Tumblr, but just for like memes or something like that.
Where users would make accounts and then they would post their meme on
exactly. Yeah.
Got it. And so this Daquan thing, which I didn't know, it was acquired by Warner Music Group for $85 million in August of 2020. And when they got bought, they had over 40 million subscribers / followers, more than 3 billion monthly views, and 85% of the IMGN, which was kind of the holdco name of this Daquan thing, they were the Gen Z and young millennials. So these are people that are hard to, like, you can't reach these people with commercials anymore. They're not watching TV. And the Daquan account by itself, that individual Instagram had 15 million followers. That constituted like 15 million of the 40 million subscribers that IMGM had total. And yeah, so for 85 million bucks a couple of years ago, that was one of the first deals that I saw that I was like, oh, there's money to be, because in the online space, I think it happens a lot of times where you're like, this is a little cash machine. Like, let me ride this gravy train until the wheels fall off. But the wheels usually tend to fall off because it's just like, they kind of tend to just run themselves into the ground without a great way to like ever sell or get on to. I think that was like the canary in the coal mine of like, it's super interesting if you can capture these eyeballs. And I think the other important thing, which is what Patrick Bet-David and all these people figured out, is like, you have to move the media company away from an individual personality, right? Like Valuetainment is trying to get Tucker Carlson to like Patrick Bet-David. Without him, like that thing isn't worth that much. And I think Daquan did that perfectly.
I think too, I saw like with Daquan, because it was such a big account, like so many of the celebrities were on it too. Like Drake was on it, was a follower. I think that's why all the music, like ton of the music, like what they were posting about was like nostalgic, I don't know, like things that were like, oh yes, I remember those.
Super cultural. Like it really grabbed the zeitgeist. It really grabbed, like people would, that was like some of the main things that people, I don't know if it pulled from Twitter or Reddit, but it was like always just on the pulse of what people wanted to talk about or what was like the newest funny thing to share, things like that.
Yeah, it reminds me a ton of like this account I follow right now. It's called Gym Fail Nation, and it's just like a whole bunch of just like gym bros that like just like
I've seen that one.
Just like funny things that if you're a member of that community, that culture, like, or you're part of that culture, it just makes so much sense to you. You're like, oh, that's part of my daily life. It's like following this thing, and so I think it's a big.
And what was that one we checked out together? Liquidity Capital, I think it was.
Yeah,
that one was also one that kind of started off as just as.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just a finance meme, but I think he got funding and he has his own fund and investments now.
He runs a VC.
Yeah, he's got a VC fund now.
I mean, another one is Pomp. I didn't do
Yeah.
a ton of research on him, but like Pomp moving from crypto to a fund, and Pomp has gone all in on media. It seems like away from taking investor capital LPs and just like content production as where he feels like the puck is going.
I don't know if like with Pomp, we need to do like another one on them, because I don't know if it's like the Pompilano family. Like there's a lot of Pompilanos. I know his brother is huge in like the sports business Twitter world and that media. He's got a huge newsletter, huge thing.
Yeah.
And they all send it to Pomp Capital or whatever their fund. They have like this huge fund. And so they're just taking over the media of these little, I don't know if they're intentionally taking over these little markets, but it'd be an interesting one to do in the future of like breaking down how they're doing that all stuff as well. Cool.
Their media acquisitions. Yeah. I remember seeing him on the MFM podcast. Like that was an interesting show where the podcast listings, even the one that you sent earlier when I was looking at that one where they had listed, what did they list for sale? The Entrepreneur on Fire podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think the ultimate goal is, rather than running paid ads, right? And even the terminology media buying has to just do with paid ad and social media ads and things like that. Or back in the day, it was like ad display networks and Google ads, things like that. But now it seems like with the podcast listing or even the Daquan you mentioned, it's kind of more like, okay, rather than renting the audience, they're buying it straight.
Yeah.
I know you've kind of talked about that. I'm surprised of the Warner Music Group one, because that's, I think, of like a legit Fortune 500 company doing it.
Yeah.
I would like to kind of see how else it kind of plays out. But like I said, I guess the people like Anthony Pomp are doing it more on the back end, or Patrick Bet-David. Are they?
Even ESPN, right? Talk
Yeah.
about ESPN, Pat. I mean, we kind of talked about this on the last one, but
Yeah, so like that one's really cool. So Pat McAfee is like a really big sports entertainer. He was like a previous punter in the NFL and then went to go retired really, really early. And so like from the get-go, like tons of people were like against him, like, oh dude, this is the biggest L of your career to retire that early. You think retired at 29 to go be a podcaster for Barstool. Ends up leaving Barstool because I guess he actually ended up hated how they ran that whole thing and treated him there. So like wasn't a really good ending. But then I went to go start Pat McAfee show on YouTube. And this thing I just saw the other day. So they get around 300,000 actual daily views every single day, 300 to 500,000 like on his show, which is a 3-hour show. And he signed a 5-year deal with FanDuel. So this would be interesting to kind of talk about. The deal finally came out. So this is different from our last podcast. At FanDuel, it was 5 years, 120 mil. And then he ended up taking that back actually and cut the deal and went to go sign with ESPN. And so he signed ESPN for 4 years. 4 years, I think it was 85 mil. 85 mil and so he took a cut. He took a cut, but ESPN is now going to put him on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus as part of and so he goes right after First Take.
And it's not like the talking heads or the anchors on ESPN or so they make a normal salary, right? They don't make millions, right?
No.
Or do they also make a ton?
I think Stephen A. Smith, he's like the really big, loud character for ESPN. He's like really the only one that's like actually has a personality. I think he makes like maybe 12 mil a year. But
he's been there for like
he's been there
25
forever.
years.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
like he's an OG.
Yeah. So I think interesting one of like he took a cut. It's a really big bet for him with ESPN, hoping that, which obviously should work because of the pull and the brand ESPN has. Also, like Pat McAfee just had a kid too, so I think he's probably trying not to work as much, and he's trying to like have ESPN like do a lot more of like booking the guests, taking care of the tech, handling the team, and doing all that stuff too. But it'd be interesting. It's an interesting deal, and also like they're not ESPN. The way they talk does not fit the language mold for Disney and ESPN over there. So it'll be interesting to see how it does that.
Hey, real quick, if you're a business owner that's doing at least $1 million a year in revenue on a digital or coaching business, we'd love to talk to you. If you go to DealMaven.io and apply on our page, we will get in touch with you and see if we can take your great business and make it even better.
Now, though, I think he has he's built the audience and all that, but the real risk was probably when he dipped out of Barstool, right? Because you would have probably thought, or most people, not knowing that story, I would have said that, okay, like that was his, he fell off from, NFL. Now he's kind of doing what potentially Barstool and he could have his come up there, but then after that, it would be like a wash. But That's interesting that he was able to kind of grow it that much. I guess maybe on Barstool, did he grow enough of a big audience where he was able to hop off from there and take that with him? Or
I think maybe a little bit. I know he was doing. I mean, he was a punter. Like he was one of the top punters in the league, and so he had a name already, somewhat. And I mean, I know he got into like some serious allegations and stuff with like drinking and things in the NFL. I don't know. I'd never heard of him until probably last year or so. I started following a little bit more, but yeah, it's a huge deal for him. And I think it'll be interesting to see if ESPN can pull, if they actually live up to their word of like saying, hey, sure, Pat, you have full control, creative control. We're not going to censor you or anything. We're going to let you just talk freely, which would be very interesting because it's going to be on live TV. I don't know how that works with all like the laws and stuff of like how much language you can use or something, but yeah, they're pretty out there. So it'd be cool.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know if you guys want to go to the EOF, like the actual Entrepreneur Fire deal.
Yeah.
He wants 15 mil.
All right. So essentially this is a podcast for sale on Website Closers. It's from 2012, so it's been around for more than a decade. Founders interviewed more than 3,500 guests on a range of business topics. So 4-digit episodes, which is crazy, and 145 million listens, which is a little weird. I'm not sure. 45 million listens. I think, I don't know if that's downloads or subscribers or so, but in general,
probably downloads, right?
Yeah, I guess it's over downloads, crazy. Which is insane, because 145 million listens, divide that by 10 years or so, like 12, 10, 15, at least 2 million or a million a month in downloads.
It doesn't say what the podcast is, right? But it's basically three podcasts that have been around that long, and one of them in the business space.
Yeah. And I think My First Million talked about it first, about where who it could be. And then it's basically like Entrepreneur Fire, the John Lee Dumas guy. I think more people on Twitter then called it out too and tried to just back into it, because there's, only a couple different podcasts that have this amount of, it says once a week he records all 7 podcast episodes. Yeah. People who listen to Entrepreneur on Fire, at least were in my path, basically in the internet marketing world from 10, 15 years ago. I don't know if you guys were ever on Black Hat World or Warrior Forum. Yeah, that was the internet,
or Silk Road. No,
no. Black Hat World. Listen to this. The Black Hat World was 12 years ago when I was in high school, right? So early 2010s or whatever. You could, with X-Rumor, you could just spam a backlink to every blog on the internet, and you could rank on the first page of Google in about 10 minutes through this software called X-Rumor. And we were able to do that. And me and my brother, my brother's wife's brother, right? We were making money because we did a Google AdSense thing on free Microsoft Xbox points. He was getting $100 a day. We were splitting it. We thought we were rich. That's awesome. And I just wish we knew. Now it's impossible. So that was on Black Hat World. Those people went to Warrior Forum, which was the OG space of internet marketing. Back I think probably Russell Brunson even. I'm talking about 2000s. Warrior Forum was big, and then kind of around 2010 or so, I don't know if you guys know this guy Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income. That was the birth of the big podcaster for a lot of internet marketers, and Amy Porterfield, all that. And John Lee Dumas was actually one of those that came out of that, and he was a guy that did exactly that. And it's funny because he even talks about he has the other income report every month. The company releases its income report. He
has April. I have right here. It's April of 2023. He said he made $180,000. So
in 1 month, net
April,
or revenue.
Yeah, and I could probably pull the actual.
But doesn't it say the trailing 12-month revenue on that was 15 mil?
Not the 15 mil.
Oh, he's asking for 15 mil.
Yeah, asking for 15.
What was revenue and profit?
So total income for 2023 so far, he's done 655,000, and net income is 590.
5 months. So yeah, I mean, pencils close enough.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone's pretty sure it's that has to be John Lee Dumas. There's no way it's not.
Yeah, no, it definitely has to, because he talks about the monthly income reports, which nobody else does. There's also one of these things talks about he does a tax tip, and that's something that John Lee Dumas actually has in each one of his income reports. There's a CPA on fire in his reports that also does that tax tip. So it's 100% him, actually. There's no way it's anybody else.
So John, if you're listening, you would come on and break this down.
And so I've never listened to it. This is the problem with a brand like this is like outside of, this is exactly what we were talking about in Austin is like these people build these courses. Typically it's so centered on them and their story, and they are basically the acquisition mechanism, and then they get tired and they don't want to be the acquisition mechanism anymore. So when there's no way to acquire customers, like the thing tends to start going down, and then they feel like the momentum and the energy required to get it back level setting is not worth it. And so then, it's like the plane, it's like a death spiral.
The only thing with this one though, how does this differ? I mean, he's definitely having to be the acquisition guy, but as far as a fulfillment side, if you're the buyer, he's probably easy to replace because it's only interview. Like he never gives really any of his stuff. It's like
his own stuff.
And it's very like routine. Like it's the same questions.
Same exact questions, same exact format. Yeah. So I kind of got burnt out on it. It's almost like people that can watch, 100 seasons of CSI or like, a white collar or something like that where it's the same,
You feel like Dave Ramsey, like it's the same shit every time. It's like, you're spinning, but you can't replace Dave Ramsey. You want to see that old guy say the same shit over and over again to like a new guy. It's like, you're spending $4,000 a month on your G-Wagon lease. Like, are you kidding me? What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? You need like that curmudgeonly old guy up there, like telling people that they're stupid. So even though it's not,
you can't not hear. If you listen, have you ever listened to
Entrepreneurs on Fire? No.
He has a very distinct voice, I think.
Yeah.
And so like when
it's like a very high
energy. Like, hello, Fire Nation.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
isn't most of that affiliate income? Like, isn't he a big affiliate for ClickFunnels and like, so it's all affiliate income?
So yeah, I mean, like if you look at
big sponsorship ads,
yeah, all of his stuff is sponsorship.
I mean, sponsorships are good if they're on like multi-year deals or something.
But. So yeah, HubSpot pays him. I don't know if we ever said this. It's like it pays him like around a little over $50,000 a month.
So Mubarak, assume that you had to do this deal. How would you do it? If I said, like, I want this thing, so don't screw this up. I want this deal, but also make it so I don't lose my $15 million.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is that the business itself isn't bad. It has a ton of downloads, a ton of brand equity. He has done something interesting in terms of like he has his podcast Paradise course, and he has a pretty good.
What does that talk about? What is that?
Just how to start a podcast. So like
how much is it?
I think it's like yeah.
Expensive.
Because he was one of the OG podcasters, like in he's been around since 2012, and he was probably one of the only like daily podcasters that's been able to sustain it for so long. But that is why it becomes so like repetitive, because it's the same exact questions, regardless of what the guest says. Regardless if the guest is at the end of like something interesting, he won't like further that storyline or whatever.
It's 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes.
Yeah. It's like a machine almost, but it's, you know what it is? I realized I was thinking about this as to why people listen to it, and it's just motivation. It's just hearing other people. It's usually about how they left their job, how they did that exit. And then
does he do video too?
I don't think so.
Could you just get like an AI recording of his voice, just like asking those questions?
Probably.
Play.
Probably. In today's world. Yeah.
You just like, no one ever knows that it's sold.
Yeah.
He just like, AI voice recording of because it's the exact same questions every single time.
Yep.
How did you get started? What's
your favorite books?
I say you just do an AI version of it, like what we've done before, like that we tried before that never got working, and no one ever knows that John Lee Dumas. So as part of the deal, I would get a royalty-free license on his voice for forever, and then you could put it through an AI voice generator and like
run an NDA so it doesn't go public, so nobody can know about the sale or whatever.
Yeah, total confidentiality, and no one ever knows that he retired. He should do that, like even if he wants to keep it. You know, what I mean? If you can get 15 mil for it, I say take it, but I don't think it will. But
no, I don't think he can get 15 million. I mean, here's the thing: it does, I think, profit
mil since 2012.
Yeah, but it has ramped up. The first few years,
10 years. So like you're buying 10 years of earnings. Today,
correct. I think as of today, it's at like
period.
2 million. I would say a year. I think it makes about 2 million a year in that profit. because it was like 180K net income, right, monthly or so. So
If he doesn't do video, I don't know why he wouldn't AI record it and automate it completely. If there's no
So sick.
if there's no pitch
Yeah.
and catch on the interviews.
Well, he only works he works like a day a week. He
Yeah,
doesn't do
he
anything.
batches them all on Saturdays. He said
Mhm.
just what he does all 7 on a Saturday. He blocks them out for an hour each. 15, like he literally has episodes and videos online of how to do this because I think it's part of his like
Yeah.
podcaster's course or so.
I assume 15 million is insanity, but there's probably a deal at 6 million. Do you think that he could get debt on that? You think the SBA backstops a $6 million podcast acquisition?
So they actually would if he has the tax returns for it and the cash flow. They would actually, or they should.
Just the
at
cash
least.
flow loan.
Yeah,
Just cash flow loan. They don't give a shit about what the balance sheet looks like. That the balance sheet is a mic and a laptop.
Yeah, if it's this comfortable, if they have 3 to 5 years, if they have 5 years of earnings, which he kind of talks about, like if his income reports are legit, then yeah, they wouldn't even need a balance sheet. They would have that level of confidence of it. Yeah, that's the crazy thing. You wouldn't even need to collateralize it because you would have 5 years. If you only had like a year, then you would need a stronger balance sheet.
You just have to personally guarantee it.
For SBA. 7A
SBA,
loans.
you got to do a PG, right?
Yeah. On the 15 million, like there's no I think SBA is capped at 5 right now. So you would have to either get some equity or
If the deal happens, I wouldn't even do it at 6 unless there's like some massive. I don't even know that I would sell or finance it. I think I'd rather just do an earnout and like have it be floating based on like how it performs.
I think it has to offer like a little bit more value. Like when I think about comparables, like, okay, Bigger Pockets podcast. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
Sure.
The real estate one, right? So that one, they had a successful transition of their main host. Pat Flynn, he talks about like how to make money online. So the problem is I don't think Entrepreneur on Fire, the podcast, like teaches any specific thing. Like even his Podcaster's Paradise is a great parable, like in parallel to it, but it's not like the EO Fire podcast talks about how to podcast. It just he built that because he was a successful podcaster. So
does Bigger Pockets like drive? I mean, what they talk about the Burr method and like fixing and flipping, and like the host is like teaching that throughout the podcast.
Correct. Yeah. They're interviewing people on real estate and talking about different real estate strategies. And usually the host was the creator for the first like 10, 15 years. He started it in the 2000s. And then there's a new guy that took over. He's like some young dude. Or there's 2 co-hosts, but those both people have been in real estate and have been on the podcast a bit. They interview other people and just talk about real estate. So that's the whole thing, is that Entrepreneur on Fire is a motivational podcast. There's no like, you can't walk away with, oh, I've learned more about real estate or I've learned more about business, because he's not even talking necessarily about business tactics unless one of the guests brings up like some strategic thing. I would really say it's really just motivation of like, here are real people, case studies that have been able to leave their day to, 9 to 5 and made their freedom, like being an entrepreneur, basically.
There's another interesting group. I can't remember what their name is. It's a private equity firm out of New York. It's actually the guys that bought Tap Out, who they were like an MMA clothing brand in the realm. It's kind of adjacent to it. And what they do is they'll go out and they will acquire the rights to music and paraphernalia, is not drug paraphernalia, not bongs, but like
like brand clothing, like Authentic Brands Group.
Like Authentic Brands Group. That's exactly who they are, right? It's like they own the rights to like Muhammad Ali and they bought it from his estate. They own the rights to Elvis, Prince. So it's kind of adjacent. And obviously with those people, the content that they created has value outside of the content creator, right? Jay Beebs sold his music library to Blackstone for a couple $100 million.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting path where like you don't own the creator, but you own the rights to kind of like the downstream. That was like the Taylor Swift got into a bunch of issues. Britney Spears, right? Her dad owned all of that stuff and it was in trust for her. I mean, it happens a lot in kind of the music and the movie world where it's like there's these downstream payments that continue to happen on a great piece of work that happened. I think that's another way, particularly in the kind of course world, right? Obviously, you chop off 3 zeros from all of those things, 5 zeros from all of those things.
Yeah.
But I've started to look at some of the marketplaces of courses like Udemy and some of those places, and those courses that where like the traffic is kind of built in,
Yeah.
because the platform provides it, and you don't need the creator to be there
Own
pushing
promoter.
it all of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've had some conversations with people with Udemy courses about selling it. I think you see all of the big players, Spotify, Apple with Apple TV, like they're all trying to figure out a way to like fill. There's like an insatiable desire for content,
Yeah, no, and I see that because even with Udemy, I was thinking about that back. One time I had 11 Udemy courses up, and I still have some on Skillshare and things. The problem is a lot of people don't know the right exit opportunity to take, and like you said, they just let it die out. So like the Daquans of the world and the John Lee Dumas, I think, for example, like Alex Hormozy talks about like the seasons of your life, and I think all these people don't realize getting into the business that hey, they started on their personal brand because that's like psychology wise, that's the easiest way to build trust and rapport with somebody. You say put your face on it, that automatically, like your profile photo, even on LinkedIn or social media, gives you that brand trust. So it's like the easiest way to get customers and to minimize customer acquisition and gain brand rapport. But then it ends up being almost impossible to sell it if you don't set up the right thing.
Yeah.
So like the Lauren Tickner stuff you mentioned in the beginning was pretty interesting because it's like, okay, she managed to make it into a school. I guess there's been a couple of other people that are able to make that move, but I don't think John Lee Dumas has done that successfully on the Entrepreneur Fire podcast as of yet. He could do it because at least it's a different like EO Fire, but it goes into the same concept like you were saying with the Dave Ramsey or in like Gary Vee, for example. Like you could get the same content, but you need the person there too.
A year ago, he should have started sprinkling in a new host and doing it once a month and then twice a month and then 3 times a month and then 4 out of 5 episodes. And like, you have to show that new buyer that there's a new relationship with a new host who, he's tied to the ship. He's not going anywhere. And like things can continue on. Normal business continues and there's no key man risk. When I looked at Barstool Sports, when I looked at Kayla Signings with BBG, right? Like all of the people that had these massive front-leading personalities that were driving the sales of the business, like years before they wanted to bail, they got serious about the customer relationship being with the brand and not with the personality. I mean, I've never paid attention to it, but it doesn't seem like JLD has done the work.
Yeah. And then it's tough on the flip side. It depends on if you want to be like a Joe Rogan. Who was the one? I don't know if it wasn't Barstool, but it was like I don't know if it was a group of girls or something, but it was like Call Her Daddy.
The Call Her Daddy girl. I actually think a great example of someone who's doing it the right way is probably Ben Shapiro. He was a contributor for a long time and then got serious about running the Daily Wire. There's actually an article that came out on that. Daily Wire has 600,000 paid subscribers. He has Jordan Peterson is like, he owns that content library of Jordan Peterson.
The Daily Wire does, or
the Daily Wire does, yeah.
Interesting.
And Candace Owens, which was like she like blew up during like COVID.
Yeah, so their CEO said in 2022 that basically they did $100 million in 2021. And then in 2020, they done $65 million of revenue. I think they raised maybe like $3 to $5 million total to start that media company. And so they have, Morning Wire, Candace, Ben Shapiro's on there. And I think he's one of the tip of the spears. I think they're serious about building personalities outside of Ben. The Daily Wire is going to, in 3 to 5 years, is if it's not already worth, if it's doing $100 million a year in revenue as a media company, that's like, what does ABC trade at? It's probably 10 to 15 price to earnings ratio. Like it's probably worth 1.5 bill today after a couple of years. And Shapiro front runs it, but he doesn't. It's the Daily Wire Plus where Jordan Peterson is on it, and they have all these like biblical experts that go on and talk about Christianity and like all the shit that,
Very
like
conservative.
mainstream media, MSNBC wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole,
Oh,
And I
okay.
even saw, Daily Wire got in a big thing with some other similar guy like Ben Shapiro. He was the guy that came out with like the Change My Mind. I don't know if you ever saw those.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He came out, they had some like big thing where they tried to bring that dude on, and he like blew up on him and like showed the contract. And the contract that how they get these artists on is like, I don't know if they've changed it since, but the way the guy, whoever it was like sharing it was like, they basically take the rights and they own you. They own everything of you. And if you can't perform or if you can't do anything, then you're gone and they keep the content. So like say
Sure.
Jordan Peterson gets demonetized, something happens to him or whatever. They say, see ya, we don't pay you anymore, but we still keep your thing.
They
And
keep
so
all that. Wow.
they keep all the content, and it's like, yeah, sorry, man.
So it's like an employment contract almost.
Because I'm
Like
sure they
they
have
ju-
to put
yeah.
a bunch of budget behind those people to kind of build their brands up. I mean, Jordan
Mhm.
Peterson obviously kind of he can run his own stuff. He's got his own platform and stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the Daily Wire though, because that only launched in 2015. And it's like, what did they do though to stand out? Like, did he already have a prior audience?
Ben Shapiro is huge. Ben Shapiro is pretty big. I think at the
Even
time, he was,
prior
like-
to this?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
And then I think they partnered with a couple other guys who were like that typical conservative.
I don't know if he was ever on Fox News or
Oh,
But-
okay.
like
a
as an
Republican.
anchor, but he was like super.
Yeah.
He would go into all of these like roundtable community meetups, and the LGBTQ plus crowd would kind of harass him, and he would kind of snap
Stand
back
under
at
the
him. He went viral. He just did a great job kind of making himself the lightning rod of the liberal left, and obviously that attracted on the conservative right to kind of back him. I mean, he went to Yale for law school, and he's done a great job.
And I just
Yeah,
looked it up.
just
He worked
being
at
a lightning
Goodwin
rod.
Proctor, which was a good law firm for searchers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not scatting ARPs. It's not scatting, but
Well, it's affordable. It's affordable.
It's okay. Goodwin is.
Yeah. It's like $50K at the end of the deal, not like $700,000.
Goodwin's it's a great law firm. I'm surprised that they
Might have
maybe
like a different templated group for searchers or something, but
maybe times are tough in the white shoe law firm world if they're stooping to the search crowd. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. Searchers are great. No, but I like you would think that Goodwin and all those kind of elite law firms that hire mostly Ivy League kids that typically prices them out of a $50,000 bill isn't that much.
yeah.
And big law worlds, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I think it's a lot of templated stuff or something that they have. I mean, someone who's not a lawyer doesn't even kind of know the rankings the way you do. All this stuff, I'm just like, how do we build something like this? Like, it's just that's this in my head. Like, damn, like 2015 to 2018. That's not a long time, and 100 million they did, and like.
Totally.
I mean, I guess I'm not that much in that world of that Ben Shapiro situation, so I can't tell about that. But it's just interesting.
Yeah,
and it's hard to find a lot of there's not many cases of this out there or happens on the DL. Like I was looking for even we know Colossus, right? They're known apparently in the mini industry to do these acquisitions, and there's no news about it. There's nothing about Colossus buying anything or merging with anything.
I don't know if they buy him or they kind of spin him up.
They sponsor them kind of like what Palm's doing with the crypto podcast and everything.
And kind of like that's what Barstool did with Call Daddy. I think they kind of run it like a TV network does, where it's like you run a pilot and see how it does, see if there's rapport, and put it out there, kind of put the marketing engine behind it and see if it takes off. It's such a low cost production mechanism.
Yeah.
Like I have a couple of friends that have been on like the Selling Sunset equivalent, where like Selling Sunset on Netflix crushes it, and then they try to basically franchise it out and build like Selling Sunset for Utah, for Atlanta, for Houston, Texas, whatever.
Yeah.
And like to run a pilot on that costs at least $500,000 for production, the camera crew, the sound crew, the post-production crew, like running the scripts, getting all the people, paying all the talent, getting hotels, all that stuff. And like the cost of a mic and having a couple people talk
Yeah,
shit for
it's
45
nothing, yeah.
minutes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
The good lighting and
50
the good
grand in
camera is the
Facebook
whole
ads.
difference. Yeah, yeah.
And you get basically the same returns, you know, as running a HGTV, like I don't know, Joe Rogan versus Joanne Gaines, like it's probably 6s. I'll take either outcome. That's great. I would much rather do Joe Rogan's job over Joanne Gaines' job. What do you say?
I was just thinking with like why no one's done like the opposite of Daily Wire. Like Daily Wire is like only conservative. Like why don't you do like a who's out there? If I don't know if there is like a very liberal, very left. Like
Should we start it?
I think so.
That's the move. There's the white space.